What's up, Rovers? For those of you that clicked on this video, note that this is a follow-up to the complete Cantarella guide I uploaded last week. I'm finally back from my travels and happy to finally have this video out, and this is a full team building guide for her with all team variants, gearing, and rotations. Due to its depth and length, I've chosen to split it off in its own video. Please note that Cantarella teams are incomplete because she is still waiting for a Havoc skill damage main DPS to release, who will most likely be Carlotta. In the meantime, she still has several good teams she can fit into. Here's a ranking of how these teams perform. It's also detailed in her spreadsheets. If you're interested in a full breakdown on everything Cantarella, please check out my previous video at the top right. It is assumed all Shorekeepers and Verinas shown today will be using variation, and if you don't have this, expect to perform several extra basic attacks to fill their concerto. Cantarella is first a sub-DPS and a healer second who focuses on basic damage. Her heals range roughly 9 to 10k per rotation, which is moderate. Because her personal damage is very average, her buffs need to benefit the team to justify her slot. Otherwise, a stronger sub-DPS like Brant or Changli, or a better healer with full team buffs like Verina or Shorekeeper would be a better choice. Most of her damage is on field, but her weak coordinated attacks have high uptime from her liberation. Her outro amplifies Havoc and skill damage but expires on swap. This means she shines best paired with main DPS that want cord attacks or focus on Havoc or skill damage. This currently includes Jinhsi, Carlotta, Havoc Rover, Danjin, and Camellya. Changli is not a good partner because of low overall team damage. Cantarella's short field time allows her to quickly deal damage and apply outro buffs to the next resonator. For speedy team rotations, it is not advised to play her as a main DPS unless you have a 5-star rectifier, but it still isn't that impressive until she has sequences. Cantarella requires her intro, and is near impossible to rotate her without it. This restricts team building and team rotation options. In other words, it is not advised to play Cantarella with Shorekeeper in a team where the main DPS wants to double intro. Looking at you, Camellya. Verina can get around this problem by not needing her own intro. There is a non-intro Cantarella rotation I will show later in the Camellya team, but it is much slower and should only be used for first rotation and is extremely quick swap heavy to pull off. Otherwise, Cantarella has two main rotations with intro. They only differ on whether you early outro or not. If Cantarella is buffed by an outro loss on swap, for example Sanhua or Roccia, she'll want to wait out her big forte nuke Perception Drain at the end of her rotation to make sure it deals full damage, and cast Lorelei before swapping off. If she isn't outro buffed by Sanhua or Roccia, you can outro the moment you start casting her nuke instead. Her echo can also be quick swapped in elsewhere. Remember that Perception Drain can only be casted in Mirage mode even if you have 3 Shiver stacks. Cantarella rotations take between 5.5 to 7 seconds to perform. All teams shown aim to be completed in 30 seconds or less, but most will finish in about 26 seconds to optimize for cooldown restrictions. For character builds, it is assumed Cantarella is on Midnight Veil if she is fully built and paired with a Havoc DPS. Otherwise, she should be on Moonlit Clouds. Empyrean Anthem is not worth it because her coordinated attacks are extremely weak, which is what the Sonata set tries to buff, and Moonlit Clouds has stronger buffs for your team. If you for some reason want to play her main DPS, Havoc Eclipse is her best set. Cantarella needs a minimum of 140 ER in all teams as a sub-DPS, and as a main DPS, Cantarella only needs 105 to 110 ER on Sanhua teams and 120 ER on Roccia teams. Shorekeeper and Verina should both be on healer set. Shorekeeper should reach 250 ER in combat, and remember that Fallacy and her inherent skill can grant another 10% each. Verina needs a bare minimum of 230 ER in most of these teams to ult every rotation. Certain teams will need different ER requirements on Cantarella or Verina, and I will mention in their respective team sections. Cantarella prefers Shorekeeper over Verina, except in Camellya teams. This is because of her Perception Drain nuke making up nearly 40% of her DPS and being singular hits wanting to crit. Her own Liberation having a 25 seconds cooldown, as well as her Abyssal Rebirth passive only being available to reset once every 25 seconds, really prevents you from taking full advantage of Verina's speedier rotations. For Camellya teams, Cantarella is worse than Sanhua and Roccia, but only the Verina variant reaches sub 30 second rotations, while still allowing you to double intro Camellya. Let's start off with Cantarella's most straightforward teams. We'll first focus on her in a sub-DPS role because that's how most will play her. Main DPS Cantarella requires sequences for good performance and more complicated rotations due to trying to manage her nuke's shorter 18 seconds cooldown. As a sub-DPS, she'll only be played in teams that she can buff to make up for her average damage. These can be split into skill damage teams and havoc damage teams. In the future, her best team will most likely be Carlotta, dealing havoc and skill damage. The currently available skill Amplify teams, Jinhsi or Carlotta DPS, perform better than Havoc Amplify teams, because these units have higher raw scaling. Changli is not included here because 1. Brant is a far better buffer for her, and 2. Cantarella's damage output is too low, so combining her with another sub-DPS results in mediocre team damage output. Because Cantarella has no matching pair that deals havoc and skill damage, she's not suitable for triple DPS teams yet and represents a significant damage loss. In Jinhsi teams, Cantarella is equal to the best options due to contributing near 100% uptime on coordinated damage, similar personal damage output to other 5-star core attackers, and equally short rotations. It is recommended to play Verina with Cantarella and Jinhsi teams to fix Cantarella's ER problems via double intro. Playing Cantarella with another 5-star core attacker would not allow double intro, requires another premium unit, and overcamps Jinhsi's forte barn, wasting damage. For Carlotta, the team is competitive but weaker than Brant Carlotta or Jojo Carlotta because Cantarella deals less damage than Brant and buffs Carlotta less than Jojo's Glacial plus skill amplify outro. Short rotations also means Cantarella doesn't need any quick swaps with Carlotta. Carlotta should be in Frosty Resolve set with 125 ER+, whereas Jinhsi should be on Celestial Light set with 120 plus ER. 130 is comfortable for both but not needed. Verina needs at least 250 ER in Carlotta teams and 255 to 260 ER in Jinhsi team. Let's look at the team rotation for Jinhsi. We open with Verina Liberation to trigger an inherent skill team plus 20% attack buff. Swap to Cantarella to precast her skill for Concerto. Swap cancel to a Jinhsi jump cancel opener. Basic 234 plus skill with a Liberation cancel. Throw your Jue Echo out and spam jump while basic attacking. Fit a Crescent Divinity skill mix in if you want for more energy, then skill as soon as Dragon Puke is available. Intro Cantarella and cast skill plus Echo again and immediately to Verina of basic 345. Skill and Echo, then aerial times 2 to outro back onto Cantarella a second time. Immediately Liberation and pre-hold heavy to enter Mirage mode. Cast Flickering Reverie skill, then basic attack 3 times for 3 shiver stacks. Then cast Forte Perception Drain and immediately outro cancel back into Jinhsi to do her second Dragon Puke. Remembering to cast Crescent Divinity after Incarnation basic 3 for Liberation energy. Reset the entire team into Cantarella, skill into Echo, and then swap into Verina basic 345. Liberation to reset chords and buffs, then skill Echo and aerial times 2 to outro into Jinhsi. Do her rotation, then you'll intro Cantarella a second time and finish her rotation before going back to Jinhsi to finish the second team rotation. Straightforward and simple. Always outro Jinhsi to Cantarella and manual swap to Verina basic 345 for her rotations. Now, regardless of healer choice, the Carlotta team variants with Cantarella rotates near identical. We lead with Carlotta skill times 2 to get it off cooldown ASAP, then swap to Cantarella to precast skill and Echo for later. Swap back to your healer and do their entire rotation. Shorekeeper will do basic 1-2-3 with Liberation cancel when basic 3 begins. Then basic 1-2-3 again holding heavy when basic 3 begins so that heavy depletes Forte bar and build 2 into the next. Cancel the heavy with skill and Echo and basic 1-2-3 again into a heavy to outro. For Verina, it's a super simple standard swap in basic 3-4-5, Liberation, then skill and Echo plus aerial times 2 into outro. Both teams intro Cantarella, who then casts skill into a Liberation cancel. Pre-hold heavy to enter Mirage mode. Cast Flickering Reverie skill, then basic attack 3 times for 3 shiver stacks. Then cast Forte Perception Drain and immediately outro cancel into Carlotta intro. Cast your skill times 2 with aerial plunge into pre-hold heavy before casting Liberation. Dump out 4 shots and cast Fatal Finale, then skill times 2 resetting either into Shorekeeper or Cantarella for Verina teams. Shorekeeper will perform basic 1-2-3, then swap to Cantarella to early skill plus Echo for Concerto, swapping immediately into Carlotta Echo for Liberation energy, then swap back to Shorekeeper to finish her rotation, then outroing onto Cantarella. On Verina teams that intro Cantarella directly instead, cast skill plus Echo, then manual swap into Verina basic 3-4-5 plus Liberation. Skill and Echo, but do not aerial cast. Swap to Carlotta to cast her Echo for Liberation energy, and then swap back to Verina. The 1 second's cooldown delay will force the swap into the air, which is fine because all Verina needs to do is aerial times 2 and outro into Cantarella. Both teams will continue Cantarella's rotation like normal, and then lead into Carlotta's rotation again. For Havoc Amplify teams, note that Sanhua and Roccia are currently better buffers for Havoc, Rover, and Camellya, as the rotations are either shorter or more quickswap friendly and also amplify basic damage, of which these two units want. Remember, Cantarella instead amplifies Havoc and skill damage. Now while Cantarella is slightly better buffer for Danjin, the difference is minimal since Danjin is only 25 to 30% skill damage. I would rather Sanhua's speedy consistent rotations or Roccia's grouping plus multiple quick swap windows, of which neither of these two units even need their intro. For the Camellya team, you specifically want to run Verina because it is the only way you can double intro Camellya while still giving an intro to Cantarella to activate her Abyssal Rebirth passive for proper concerto. Shorekeeper Camellya would have to play single intro, which results in 30 seconds rotations minimum, likely to drop Cantarella buffs partway through Camellya's rotation. Havoc Rover should be on old Havoc set with Dreamless at 110 to 115 ER. Camellya should be on a 5-piece old Havoc set at 115 ER if you're using Nightmare Crownless and casting it twice, or Dreamless, and 125 ER if you're using old Crownless. Danjin herself would only need 100 ER as a main DPS in a full team and should be using Nightmare Crownless on old Havoc set, but old Crownless or Dreamless are usable too. Now the only difference in opener rotations between healers in a Havoc Rover team is Shorekeeper leading with basic 1-2-3 first. Then both teams bring in Rover's early Liberation plus skill and Dreamless before swapping into Cantarella to cast skill plus Echo, and then swap back to your healer to finish the rotation. Shorekeeper will do another basic 1-2-3 with a heavy hold when basic 3 is about to come out, and Liberation cancel. Then basic 1-2-3 again and heavy with skill plus Echo and do outro. Verina would instead do Verina basic 3-4-5 plus Liberation, skill and Echo into Aerial ×2 and outro both teams into Cantarella. Cast skill into Liberation and pre-hold heavy to enter Mirage mode. Cast Flickering Reverie skill and then basic attack 3 times for 3 Shiver stacks, then cast Forte Perception Drain, and immediately outro cancel to Havoc Rover intro. Slam down and cast skill, then heavy to immediately enter Dark Surge state. Do enhanced basic 1-2-3-4-5 twice fully, then do basic 1-2 again, and then cast Liberation and Dreamless into outro cancel. Shorekeeper teams obviously reset into Shorekeeper basic 1-2-3 and then to Rover skill for Forte, since it should have just come off cooldown, then swap to Cantarella's skill plus Echo. Verina teams will instead reset into Cantarella, who will cast skill plus Echo, then swap to Rover's skill for Forte as well, as on this team it also just came off cooldown. Both teams will then swap back to their healer to finish their rotation. Then outro into Cantarella to do her rotation, and then outro into Rover to do DPS round 2. Rinse and repeat until the enemy is dead. Danjin teams revolve around preparing most of her Forte bar in advance so that once you intro her, she can immediately dump a full Forte in Liberation, then charge her Forte up again to dump a second Chaos Cleave while still all buffs are up. This makes her team rotations a bit longer, ranging around 30 to 35 seconds long. Do not expect to get more than about 7 Chaos Cleaves in 2 minutes, but this should be enough. Remember that Cantarella is a very minor improvement over Sanhua or Roccia, because rotations are either slower, or you're lacking grouping in exchange for slightly higher buffs. If on Shorekeeper, open with basic 1-2-3, then both healer variants will swap to Cantarella to cast skill plus Echo. Then swap to Danjin and precast Nightmare Crownless with dodge cancel if you're using it. Perform 2 more loops of skill basic 2-3 plus skill ×3 to fill most but not all of Concerto and Forte Barn. Swap back to your healer and finish their entire rotation. Shorekeeper will do another basic 1-2-3 with a heavy hold when basic 3 is about to come out and Liberation cancel. Then basic 1-2-3 again and heavy with skill plus Echo into outro. Verina would instead do basic 3-4-5 plus Liberation, skill and Echo into Aerial ×2 and outro both teams onto Cantarella. Cast skill into Liberation and pre-hold heavy to enter Mirage mode. Cast Flickering Reverie skill, then basic attack 3 times for 3 Shiver stacks, then cast Forte Perception Drain, and immediately outro cancel to Danjin. Immediately cast skill ×2 to reapply Incinerating Rill, and then cast either version of Crownless and dodge cancel into a Liberation cancel. Immediately cast your Forte Heavy Chaos Cleave, then reapply Incinerating Will with skill basic 2 plus skill ×2. Perform 2 more loops of skill basic 2-3 plus skill ×3 with a second full Forte Chaos Cleave before outroing to reset the team. Shorekeeper teams reset to her basic 1-2-3 and then swap to Cantarella skill plus Echo. Verina teams instead reset into Cantarella directly to cast Skill plus Echo. Both teams then swap to Danjin to prepare her forte in advance again, leading with a Nightmare Crownless dodge cancel. Perform 2 more loops of Skill Basic 2-3 plus Skill times 3 to fill most but not all of Concerto and Forte bar once more. Swap back to finishing your healer rotation, then intro into Cantarella and finish her rotation, before finally outroing into Danjin DPS phase with all buffs. You only have enough time to run this again a third full rotation before the clock runs low. As a reminder, Cantarella only works with Verina teams for Camellya DPS. This is because Cantarella requires her own intro to activate her Abyssal Rebirth passive for Concerto, and Camellya much prefers double intro herself for more consistent and smooth rotations, and ensures buffs remain active throughout her entire DPS phase by applying Cantarella's outro Amplify, only right before she casts Ephemeral and enters Budding mode. Shorekeeper wants her own intro not just for her fancy damage, but because it's worth 20 Concerto for speeding up her rotations. Alternatively, skipping Cantarella's intro slows the entire team down, which you'll notice even on the Verina team since Cantarella is already forced to no intro on the first rotation. Luckily, every rotation afterwards she gets her intro, aka you will only see me showcase the Verina team here. We open with Cantarella's basic 1, only cast skill Graceful Step after your basic connects for Concerto. Immediately heavy attack into Delusive Dive and then cast skill Flickering Reverie without basic attacking. You only have 1 Forte stack and you don't want to accidentally drop out of Mirage mode. After, use basic Phantom Sting 1 to proc Jolt and +1 Trance stack, and swap cancel to Verina basic 3-4-5 when you reach the ground. Cast Liberation, then skill and Echo into Aerial ×2 outro for Camellya's first intro. Slam down and pre-hold a heavy attack, immediately back swap into Cantarella's basic 1-2-3. As soon as basic 3 begins, swap back to Camellya, who should still be in the air. Continue the spin until her sword glows red and is about to slam down. Swap back to Cantarella and slam down to the ground with Aerial 1 and then cast her normal skill and Liberation cancel. Pre-hold heavy to immediately enter Delusive Dive. Cast skill Flickering Reverie, then basic attack 2 times to jolt the enemy and get the missing 2 Shiver stacks so you can cast Forte Perception Drain. Early outro into Camellya to DPS mode. Land and cast either Crownless into Dodge Cancel into Liberation Cancel. Then cast Ephemeral and do your spin to win DPS. Remember to skill down before you outro into Cantarella for a much easier second team rotation. She will cast Skill plus Echo and then manual swap to Verina to basic 3-4-5. Liberation and Skill and Echo with Aerials to finish her rotation like before, outroing directly into Camellya and pre-holding heavy. No more quick swaps are needed since Cantarella actually got her intro this time. Commit to Camellya's entire spin to win, then swap to Cantarella as Camellya falls down and immediately Liberation. Pre-hold heavy again, casting skill Flickering Reverie once you enter Mirage mode. Then basic 3 times to cast Forte Perception Drain, early outro to apply buffs and nuke on Camellya again before resetting once more into Cantarella to rinse and repeat. Now, Cantarella has pretty fast rotations as a sub-DPS. In theory, this means she should be able to cycle her on field several times if you want to main DPS her. Unfortunately, her Liberation is locked on a 25 seconds cooldown. You know, the tool that grants 3 Forte stacks. Additionally, her Forte nuke Perception Drain is instead locked to an 18 seconds cooldown, leaving it with a desync. You can either run a standard 25 seconds team, or a desync 25 seconds team where you cast her nuke whenever it's available, or try to run a 20 seconds team instead to line up echo buffs. I would personally recommend running the 20 second setup if you're playing Sanhua, Verina, Cantarella. This is the only iteration of Cantarella Hypercarry that can run the sub 25 seconds rotation. Now, while Cantarella can now ult only every 2 out of 3 rotations, remember that Cantarella's ult is rather weak and grants 3 Forte stacks. It is still very possible to easily produce 5+ stacks every rotation, even without her ults, in 20 seconds or less to get 5 enhanced basic and cast her Forte nuke. Also, we'll actually give each character their intro. Yes, Verina gets her intro too, so that she isn't as reliant on her Liberation. We will not be missing any buffs. For the Shorekeeper Roccia version of this team, we go the 25 seconds rotation route, because Shorekeeper requires her Liberation to be worth using, which has a 25 seconds cooldown, while Roccia's Liberation has a 20 seconds cooldown and much slower rotations than Sanhua. Now, this means that on the Verina Sanhua teams, her ER doesn't really matter as much since she only casts Liberation once every other full team rotation. Anything 140 plus should be enough, which should be super easy to reach. Otherwise, in 25 seconds teams, Verina should run 230 ER. Shorekeeper still runs the standard 250 ER in combat after accounting for fallacy and her inherent skill granting 10% each. Both healers should be on healer set. Sanhua only needs 100 ER on Moonlit regardless of the 20 or 25 seconds team, because while Cantarella is a bad battery in the sub-DPS slot, she still produces more energy per action compared to a main DPS. So playing her as a main DPS fixes all of the ER problems she could cause. Roccia still needs 140 ER as she is a worse battery than Sanhua if she casts her Tornado skill only once, which is what happens in Cantarella teams. Midnight Veil will be superior to Moonlight Clouds on Roccia in this kind of team, but both are competitive. As a reminder, Cantarella main DPS should be on Havoc Eclipse set with 105 to 110 ER on Sanhua teams, and 120 on Roccia teams. Nightmare Crownless is her best choice, with Dreamless not that far behind and much easier to use. Normal Crownless is annoying to use because you have to dodge cancel and it increases her ER requirements by 10 since it won't hit to produce energy, aka you need 125 to 130 ER on your Cantarella now. The Verina Sanhua team uses a 20 seconds rotation to take advantage of echo cooldown limits, and Cantarella's 18 seconds nuke cooldown, which does not apply to any other Cantarella main DPS team. Note that even in a 20 seconds rotation, Cantarella still will occupy 12 seconds of the outro buff. It allows it to remain extremely competitive to the 25 seconds teams despite Verina Sanhua giving weaker buffs and being weaker units, aka the free-to-play team, by cycling the team 5 seconds faster. Open with Sanhua pre-hold heavy. Instant cast Liberation, then let go heavy in the blue forte after it completes. Cast skill after the first detonation hit, and then Heron plus swap out to Verina before the second detonation hit. Perform basic 3-4-5 plus Liberation, then skill plus Echo and Aerial ×2 to outro onto Sanhua. Basic until your bar is full, and then outro to Cantarella. Skill and immediately cast Crownless or Nightmare variant if you're using them, then dodge cancel into Liberation to hit 5 Forte stacks. Pre-hold heavy to enter Mirage and cast skill Flickering Reverie. Basic Phantom Sting 3 times and cast your Forte nuke, Perception Drain. Basic attack out your remaining 2 Forte stacks, then cast normal skill plus basic 1-2-3 for 2 Forte stacks. Cast Streamless if you're using it before outro back into Verina to start second team rotation. Immediately swap in Sanhua and pre-hold heavy while casting Liberation. Let go heavy in the blue forte after it completes. Cast skill after the first detonation hit, and then Heron plus swap out to Cantarella before the second detonation hits. Cast Cantarella's skill. If it's on cooldown, perform a basic 1-2-3 before casting it. Then swap back to Verina. Cast Liberation instead of basic 3-4-5 if it's available. Then skill plus Echo plus Aerial ×2 and intro Sanhua. Spam basics until you can outro onto Cantarella. Continue into basic 3 and cast skill to hit 5 Forte stacks. Immediately cast Crownless or Nightmare variant if you're using them, and dodge cancel. Cast Liberation if available, it's okay if it's not. Pre-hold heavy to immediately enter Mirage mode, and if Perception Drain is not available, cast skill Flickering Reverie. Do not cast Perception Drain yet. Basic Phantom Sting 3 times and then cast your Forte nuke, Perception Drain. If you're holding off on casting skill Flickering Reverie, cast it now. Again, cast Liberation here if available, it's okay if it's not. Spam Phantom Sting basic attacks until you burn all Forte stacks. Cast normal skill and Dreamless if you're using it, before outro into Verina to start third team rotation. Basically, the first 2 rotations out of every 3, you'll be able to cast Liberation at one of the listed moments on Cantarella, and the third rotation will skip it. Then 4th rotation resets. Shorekeeper takes nearly 2 seconds longer to rotate than Verina and requires her Liberation every rotation, which also has a 25 seconds cooldown. Thus, we use a standard 25 seconds rotation in this team. Open with Shorekeeper's basic 1-2-3, then swap to Cantarella and cast her skill. If you're feeling fancy, it's difficult to balance the 12 seconds cooldown on Flickering Reverie in Mirage mode, but you can heavy Delusive Die here to enter Mirage and cast skill Flickering Reverie for some extra damage. You don't have to do this, it's just min-maxing. Otherwise, swap to Sanhua and basic once or twice. Swap back to Shorekeeper and do another basic 1-2-3 with a heavy hold when basic 3 is about to come out, and then Liberation cancel. Then basic 1-2-3 again, and heavy with skill plus Echo and outro into Sanhua. Pre-hold heavy during intro and cast Liberation. Let go heavy in the blue forte after it completes. Cast skill after the first detonation hit, and then Heron to outro into Cantarella. Complete basic 3, then skill for your 4th forte stack. Immediately cast Crownless or Nightmare variant if you're using them, and dodge cancel into pre-hold heavy to enter Mirage mode. Cast skill Flickering Reverie, then Phantom Sting 3 times to cast your Forte nuke, Perception Drain. Once it hits, cast Liberation to restore 3 Forte stacks. Dump all 4 remaining Forte, then skill and cast Streamless if you're using it before outro back until Shorekeeper reset. Do your basic 1-2-3. If you're feeling lucky, squeeze in a Cantarella pre-hold heavy delusive dive here to enter Mirage mode and cast skill Flickering Reverie for some extra damage. Otherwise, completely skip this Cantarella swap in entirely. Go to Sanhua and basic a few times, then swap to Shorekeeper. Basic 1-2-3 again, with a heavy hold when basic 3 is about to come out and Liberation cancel. Skill and Echo to outro into Sanhua and continue your Liberation rotation into Cantarella DPS. Now, Roccia takes roughly 2 seconds longer to rotate than Sanhua, thus we also use the standard 25 seconds rotation in these two teams regardless of healer choice. They play out similar to the Sanhua Shorekeeper 25 seconds variation from Team 7, but with no fancy optional second delusive dive Mirage mode in the same rotation for Cantarella. We lead with Roccia's skill into Liberation cancel, then cast your Echo if you're not using Moonlit Heron, and swap into your healer. Verina will perform basic 3-4-5 Liberation into skill and Echo, but do not do her aerials to finish her rotation. Shorekeeper will simply do basic 1-2-3. Both teams then swap to Cantarella to precast her normal skill for 1 Forte stack, then swap to Roccia basic 2-3. If you're using Moonlit Heron, cast it here. Swap back to your healer and finish their rotation. For Verina, this is simply aerial times 2. For Shorekeeper, this is another basic 1-2-3 with a heavy hold when basic 3 is about to come out and Liberation cancel. Then basic 1-2-3 again and heavy with skill plus Echo. Both teams outro into Roccia, who will perform basic 4 and then charge heavy into 2 real fantasy bounces for enough energy generation. If your team's ER just barely isn't high enough, then do a third bounce. Then outro into Cantarella. Complete basic 3, then skill for your 4th Forte stack. Immediately cast Crownless or Nightmare variant if you're using them, and then dodge cancel into a pre-hold heavy to enter Mirage mode. Cast skill Flickering Reverie, then Phantom Sting 3 times to cast your Forte nuke, Perception Drain. Once it hits, cast Liberation to restore 3 Forte stacks. Dump all 4 Forte stacks, then skill and cast Streamless if you're using it before outro. Verina teams cycle back into Roccia again, immediately casting her Liberation and Echo if you're not using Heron, then swapping back to Verina to continue the team per the chart. Shorekeeper teams obviously cycle back into Shorekeeper with a basic 1-2-3. We back swap in Roccia's basic 2-3 plus Liberation cancel and Echo cast, then go back to finishing Shorekeeper's rotation to continue the team. As I said, Cantarella main DPS teams can get pretty interesting, but it's pretty fun, right? And that's it for the Cantarella team building video. Thank you so much for watching through this entire guide. I hope this has been useful for setting up and playing your teams. As a reminder, all spreadsheets documenting my testing can be found in the description and pinned comment. If you need a refresher on Cantarella herself, do feel free to check out her complete guide down there too. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Stick around if you want to see interesting videos. Don't miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this one. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you all next time.